Hey, and welcome to today's episode. Well, I am recording from Austin, Texas today. I am very excited to be on a tour and being interviewed by some amazing people and getting to interview some amazing people. And the person that I get to talk to today, and warning my friends, like I'm going to be talking a lot about my own shit, let me be honest, because this is a topic that I have been waiting to talk about for the longest time. But Amanda Gibby Peters, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me and welcome to Texas. I'm just north of
Yeah,
you. I'm
well,
up in Dallas.
I took an accidental trip to Dallas because I missed the freaking flight. And I don't know how I did it. I was meant to go from LA straight to Austin. And I'm like, oh my God, I just missed my flight. How did that happen? So then I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to go to Dallas and then from Dallas to Austin. So, hey, I was there for like a good hour. But yeah. So
Nice.
I am so excited to talk about Feng Shui. Yeah, I love your take on Feng Shui because I feel like it's really similar to my take on human design. And it's that whole, if we make it super simple, then people are going to pick it up and actually
Yeah,
run with it. So I always love to start at the beginning. And that is where I really
sure.
think most of us, not all of us, but most of us, we have this dark night of the soul. We have this moment in time where we're like, oh my God, really? And instead of,
Hmm.
dissolving into a puddle and being completely hopeless, we're like, I don't know where I found it, but I found this strength to get up and make a decision and head in a new direction. And of course, this is our purpose, it's our hero's journey. And so I'd really love to hear your journey from maybe a time that was really challenging that brought you to the person you are today doing what you're doing in the world.
Well, I love that you asked that question because that's actually exactly how I got into feng shui. Like, I feel like you just
I
went
love
to the
it.
name of my podcast. So the story goes that, this was almost 20 years ago. My husband and at the time 3-year-old twin daughters and I were relocated for his job to a new to us town and a new to us home. And, a lot of things started feeling super strained, but I assumed, oh, big life change. This is the learning curve, right? But it just kept getting worse. And it was showing up in every area of our lives. And I joke that I had that dark night of the soul in the middle of the afternoon. I was like fist in the air. What do I need to do? And I grabbed a book off my bedside table and I said, whatever's here is going to be some sort of answer. And it was feng shui, except I read it and I thought it was the most dubious, like mystically ridiculous thing. Like, I'm going to change my home and my whole life is going to change. Like, come on, I just changed homes, not realizing, oh,
Yeah.
ding, 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 there it is. I took the scenic route, right? So, right around that time, blogs were really big, right? Those were the original influencers, I say. And so I thought, well, I'll just write a blog. I will try this thing called Feng Shui and I'll report back and, kind of have a good time with it, thinking there's no way this is going to work. And so, pushed up my sleeves, good student, bought a couple books. This was before Amazon. Bought a couple books and, just went crazy highlighting things that I thought were reasonable for us. Still felt a little indulgent, like buying fresh flowers, but I was like, I can be good at that. Right. So I did those things. And what I always tell people, because, when you hop on Instagram or Google School or Pinterest or, grab a magazine that's talking feng shui, oftentimes they make it sound very transactional. It was not a transactional experience, but I noticed that every time I did something, I was curious what else I could do. So there was that. And then I was also noticing that our house that had felt so resistant to us started feeling more like home. So I just kept doing little things. And what ended up happening was within, I would say, several months, some big things changed. And one of those big things was my husband was offered a new job with a significant salary raise. And even though I don't like people to think feng shui is all about making more money or finding your one true love, that was something that got my attention. But like so many people knew to Feng Shui, I thought, well, that's a coincidence. That was going to happen, even though there were other little things happening too. So I put Feng Shui through my own like rigorous test. And I thought, okay, well, I need to get a, freelance gig because I just finished grad school and I had intentions of going on to get my PhD. So I thought I need something in the in between. So I reached out to three people cold, like just cold. They weren't looking for anyone. I was like, you are really cool companies that I think I could be a really good match for. And all three people reached out to me. All three people invited me in for an interview. I met their CEOs and I was offered a job at all three places. So you would think that's where I'm like, okay, this works. Still
Wow.
no. So then what happens is there are two that I always refer to as sexy jobs. One was like a PR company, one was a publishing house, but the other one was with an international organization that did a lot of stuff through DC. And it was the one that actually offered everything that I'd written down that I would love to have if I could sort of scope out like, okay, what would make a freelance gig worth it? So I took that job. And shortly after that, here in the US, the economy bottomed out and that PR house and that publishing house had to let a lot of people go. But because I was through the State Department, I got to keep my job. And that's when I was like, okay, something is happening here and I need to stop being
Mm.
so skeptical and really step in as a student.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's freaking me out how similar our stories are, just with different modalities. Like that's how my podcast started. I was kind of like, well, shit, I made an agreement with the universe that I would do this bloody human design experiment. And, yeah, all these years later, I'm like, oh, and see how that was absolutely aligned for me. Um, yeah, I love it. And I also, like, I'm really curious about, because you're a 5-1 emotional projector. And what is really freaking crazy, I always talk about, I just wish everyone knew their incarnation cross and that we just all wore a badge, because the people that cross our paths, like, your energy is calling in my cross. So there's something going on in your life
Mm,
that needs the energy to work out what your community needs. It's like, what does my community need? That's what your aura is calling for right now. Um, and you're the cross of obscuration. And what is crazy is I've literally, until yesterday, I'd come across 3 in all my years. And I was married to one of them. And I'm like divorcing one of them. Right?
I've heard that on
And
the
then
podcast.
I'm sitting there with Carl Callahan yesterday, and Lindsay, who's his podcast producer, I'm like, oh, what's your cross? And she quickly looks it up. She's like, oh, cross of obscuration. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then when I look at your chart, I'm like, are you kidding me? So it's this whole cool thing. Like, what is so interesting about your cross is, and you're a projector, it's this whole, you see what other people don't see. It's like you can see through the veil. And I feel like that's so
Mhm.
aligned with Feng Shui. Like, even your mind and your ego was like, yeah, I'm not sure about this shit. But your body is like, yeah, you know what? We can see through what you think you can see. And I love that. I think that is so, so powerful. So let's start talking about Feng Shui. Let's give it, like, start at the beginning a little bit, give it a little bit of an overview. Like, what is Feng Shui? Because I'm thinking it's about moving my couch around. Let's talk about it
Yeah.
a little bit deeper. What is it about?
Yeah, so I'll just say right now, it's not a design trend. It doesn't come and go. It's not a religion. It's not witchcraft. It's not about moving your furniture, although sometimes you can do that. It's not minimalism. That's another mistake a lot of people make when they come to feng shui. They think it's about clearing clutter and having a minimalist lifestyle. So here's the best way I can describe feng shui, and it's through a story because I think most everyone can relate. So, if you have any sort of plants, whether that's inside your house or outside your house, and that plant starts to show any signs of struggle or fatigue or like, I'm not living my best life, you don't go outside or you don't look at the plant inside and say, what's wrong with you? You need to try harder. You need to, change your approach. You get curious about its environment. You ask, does the soil need to be fertilized? Does it need more water, more sun, less sun? Is the location okay? We are like those house plants. Our environment matters. And so when you understand that you are always under the influence of an environment because you're always in one, you start to understand really what this wisdom of feng shui is about. Because when you translate feng shui, it means wind, water. And wind is symbolic of energy, water is symbolic of fortune. And so, really, it is about bringing yourself into alignment with the energy of fortune. Now, I want to make just a quick side note because people hear fortune and immediately they're like, show me the money. And that's not what it is. Fortune here is like, what is it that makes you feel your best self, right? And money is one aspect of that, but it is also, feeling good in your body, being healthy, having resources and opportunities, having community and support. It's all of those things. And so, really, that is what the wisdom is here
Oh,
to
I
align
love
us
that
with.
so much. And it's so interesting because I think, that this money topic, I talk a lot about abundance and authenticity. Like, if you want to be abundant, then you just want to be
Mhm.
authentically yourself. Because when you're authentically yourself, you're going to
Yeah.
call all good things in. And I think it's so
Yeah.
interesting. And I think we are shifting. So much of it's a shifting. We're really understanding that prosperity and fortune is this holistic thing. It's not just money. But I love that you talk about that. And I love that metaphor because my house is basically an indoor
Yeah.
jungle. So I'm yeah, I'm like constantly playing chess with my plants. Like, oh, you
Yes.
need more of this and less of that. And oh, you can go outside in the little
Yeah.
nursery area or you can come. So I totally get that. And I love that. So let's start talking about, um, for me, let's say in my house, do I go, okay, what's
Mhm.
going on in my life? Like, what am I feeling in my physical body? So at the moment, I'm probably leaning towards feeling a little bit more tired all the time. And it's a weird tired. I was talking to
Mhm.
my kinesiologist about this, that it's not that I'm physically tired, but it's like I'm cellularly tired. It's like I've been
Mhm.
in my masculine for way too long. There's a lot on my shoulders at the moment with this whole
Yeah.
separation and divorce. Like, both the kids are with me, all of this stuff. So I'm doing all the things. Like, I'm going to bed early, I eat really well, I exercise, I do all the things. But
Mhm.
there is this part of me that's like, how do I regenerate my energy? Because I'm doing all the external things or the 3D things, but I'm sure there's something energetic that I
Yeah.
can do. So is that how you start to help people? Like, do you talk to them personally, or how do you go about this whole thing?
Yeah, so I think I love this question because I think a lot of people think, oh, just give me a weekend to do list and then I'm feng shui. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so cute. Like, if
Yeah.
only it were that easy, right? Because it really does come down to the person, the space, the challenges, and the desired outcome. And I will assure you that every single client I've worked with over 20 years, that's a different configuration. So I ask questions. Like, I might come in and see things in a home, but if it is not something that is immediately of concern, it's not showing up in, let's say, the objectives or intentions, it may or may not be something that we bring on the table. And that's not because they didn't ask. It's because I want to honor where people are at in their own journey so that we don't trigger change
Oh, I
that they're not
love
ready for,
that.
right? I mean, a lot of yeah. So a lot of people are like, I just need to clean my closet, right? I need to, like, it's just so crazy. And I'm like, can I see the rest of your house first? Because closets are so tied to who we are. A lot of times we shop as a coping mechanism. We buy things when we're feeling a certain way that's not really who we are most of the time. And so we end up with all these different identities. And so
That's
if
way
you
too close
haven't
to the.
gotten a
Yep, got
good
it.
if you haven't really like sort of done some other grounding in the house, then that can feel like I got rid of all that stuff, but it didn't land, and so you just acquire more, right? I think that's the problem with those sort of like, let's just clear all the clutter in one fierce weekend. If you're not really paying attention to what the intentions are, where you are in your life, what you need, oftentimes we do these things that are going to deliver empty results because it's not aligned with
Mm.
where we are on our journey. So, a really good example of this, when someone is going through a really big change, any sort of trauma, the last thing I want them doing is clearing clutter, because in those situations, clutter, even though it might be holding some of those patterns in place, it is very grounding. It creates an insulation. It's offering something in that moment that when the person is through it, or, more on both feet, they'll be able to make really clear decisions about what they want to stay and what they're ready to release,
Ooh,
right? That's a
that's
really good
so
example.
powerful. And because,
Yeah.
so I am not a clutter person. I'm a very um,
Yeah.
I'm pretty organized. We don't have clutter around the house, but one of the things that's been a real challenge for me is, and I've got like
Mhm.
friends of mine going, I'm going to help you. Let's just do it. Let's just, is our garage. Because the garage has got all this stuff in it
Yeah.
that is from our marriage. And we want to clear it out because
Oh,
we've got
yeah.
an ice bath. I want to get a sauna. So we want to turn it into this beautiful space. But there's this part of me that I'm just like, I'm not ready. And because of my human design, I'm an emotional authority like you. I'm like, I'm not going to push myself to do it because that's not how I'm designed to be.
Yeah.
But I am super curious because I am one of those people that's like, I will run screaming into a burning building if I'm like, okay, let's work on this, let's get through it. But it's really interesting because it's something I have very, and it's calm, and it's there's no story, there's no there's no
Yeah.
it doesn't even feel like serious resistance. Like, yes, there's this low level resistance,
Yeah.
but it's just funny. Like, there's just part of me, I'm like, I'm not ready yet. So, is that what you're talking about with the clutter?
Yeah, I think what happens is they're sort of, to simplify it, I think that there's this fork in the road, right? Sometimes we know we need to take care of stuff, but we just keep putting it off because that's the habit, that's the pattern. We're just like, when you feel that calling, respond. And here's why: because normally your house, well, not normally, your house is a living, breathing
Mm,
family member, I tell people. And it knows, because you're talking, you're living, you're breathing your intentions, desires, ambitions into that space. It wants to help you get there. And so sometimes it's going to pull you the direction that's getting in your way. So if you ever feel that inclination, you're like, no, I'm going to Netflix and binge instead, that
yeah.
is a missed opportunity, right? Because your house is like, I'm here to help make this easy. Let's do this. I know how to get you where you want to go. And then there are times where, like you said, your friends are like, I can do this, right? Because they don't have any emotional connection to it. But when we're going through our own stuff, and especially if you're on this tour right now, like, too many changes are too many changes. One of like the more frustrating parts of when I share things, through my community, whether that's Instagram, newsletter, whatever, is that people think if they do all the things that they'll get all the results. And I'm like, sit with that. Are you ready for all the changes all at once? Because my experience has been most people freak
Mm,
out if everything starts changing, because we've romanticized or stereotyped feng shui to bring change the way we think it
uh,
should look.
and I love
And
that
that's
because
not
I
what it
actually
does.
think that it's not just feng shui. I think that's everything that we. And I was just talking to Cal Callahan about
Yes.
this yesterday about business success, and I was talking about how it's so easy to succeed when you're aligned to your design. And he's like, so what's the hardest thing you've dealt with? And I'm like, letting go of control. Because, and I think that this is the whole
Yeah.
thing, is we have to listen to ourselves. And you saying that, like, I feel like so much of my energy is like, I'm going to deal with the pieces because I do. I'm also parenting two children. I'm running this business. I'm, like doing all these
Yes.
things at the same time, and trying to navigate through all of this, healing from trauma and dealing with lawyers. And I feel like to go
Yes.
through that, it's also like this mixed emotion, because there's going to be some really cool shit that's going to
Yeah.
make me go, oh my God, that was so amazing. I'm really grateful for that. And then there's going to be like, oh my
Yes.
God, that hurts so much. So, yeah, I love that. And I
Yeah.
do think that it's so interesting that we get so attached to all these modalities and we're like, I know exactly what I want. So I'm going to go and do this thing. And that's exactly how it's going to happen. And when it doesn't
Yeah.
go that way, because inevitably it doesn't, um, that's when we freak out.
Right. Oh, completely. I always joke, like, people rarely call the feng shui practitioner, say, look at what happened. They usually call and say, something's going
Yeah.
wrong. What is it?
Yeah. Oh my God. So I, like, again, like you, I'm really practical. We're both line fives. I'm really
Mhm.
curious, like, are there really specific things that, because I remember reading once that, you shouldn't be able to see the back door from the front door. And I'm like, shit, because I live in a house
Mhm.
that is all windows and our front door looks straight out, a sliding back,
Yeah.
like a sliding door out there, which is maybe it's our back door,
Yeah.
but we have this big long house and there's doors everywhere type of thing. So are there some really important things that we could be doing that are kind of like everyone can do without having to go right into the specifics of each individual?
Sure. So for that, I will just say for your front door and back door, because a lot of people have that alignment. I have that. My front door, I have a very deep house, but if you look to the back, it's all windows. That is something known as rushing chi, where energy comes in. And because our eye is drawn to that back space, it's like energy shoots through the house and goes back out. You've just mentioned, though, that you're basically a jungle. You have all these plants. And so, without getting too complicated, you have all this earth energy and this wood energy. And that's a really great way to
Mm.
manage that chi flow, right? There are all sorts of fixes. So, I will just say to everyone as an overall, anytime you go to Google school, you got to be ready because you're going to walk out knowing something is quote unquote wrong with your house and you're probably going to be afraid. So just let me assure you,
Oh, I love
you're
that.
just missing context, right? Anything that you read is just one piece of it. And one of my favorite things, and what my students will tell you I do so often, is I can rattle
Mm.
off options for anything. Because when you've done this long enough, you've seen all different ways to enhance or mitigate a situation. So that is an easy
Love
one
that.
to manage. But in terms of really simple things that anyone can do, and I love the practical, the whole reason I am Simple Shui is because when I came into this, I had no idea that there were different schools and different approaches. And so I was like, what is up with all these contradictions? And I'm so confused. And now I'm scared of my house. That is not what feng shui is about. I mean, I think that there's some marketing behind that, right? Like there's some people who
Yeah.
are like, if I get you scared, you're going to really want to pay attention. But really, it again comes down to you just don't have enough infrastructure to understand what is being shared with you. And so there's no reason to be afraid. There are always, I repeat, always opportunities in your house for improvement. And that's what I want people to get really curious about because feng shui is not something you choose to do. If you have stuff and you have space, there is a conversation already happening around you. So my invitation is like just get curious about where there are opportunities. So, in terms of simplicity, things
Mm.
anyone can do, the front door. Always love up on your front door. And the reason why is it is what we call the mouth of chi. It is the space like our own mouths where we take in oxygen and nourishment and food. Your front door to your house is where everything you're calling in, you're back there journaling what you want to manifest, and you've got your affirmations and you're doing your meditation. All of that you're calling into your life has to come through your front door. And if your front door is not used, it's neglected, it's dusty, you walk in the door, it's crammed, it's dark, there's not a lot of room to move around, then everything you're calling in has to
Wow.
hurdle that.
So that's fascinating for me because
Yeah.
when when I first separated from my ex, the front door, because we actually have a front door and then a glass sliding door. And we use the glass sliding door, like
Okay.
not the front door. And in the front door, we kept all our surfboards
Yeah.
and stuff. And what was interesting is like as soon
Yeah.
as we split up, I'm like, I don't know what it is. We need to sort this front door out. So we cleaned the front door. So now it's a clear
Yeah.
space and it's neat. There's even like a little hanging plant and like it's all neat and tidy. But I've always wondered, like, should we be actually using the front door as opposed to the sliding door?
Yes. 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 I mean, it makes such a huge difference. It is one of those things, again, and I love simple. I love things that anyone can do. You don't have to go out and buy something. Using your front door, and it doesn't have to be the door you come home in, but like maybe you go out to check the mail, maybe you take the dog for a walk and you use the front door, maybe you just go out and sweep around the front door like, a couple times a week or
Mm.
once a week. Find a way to ritualize its use, but that is such an easy space to work with and get some feedback, right? We live in this vibrational universe. You're going to get feedback when you do anything with intention and love for your front door. So front door, super simple. Shake out the doormat, sweep. You can wipe down the front door, especially if you've just gone through the season, and it's dusty or there's pollen or, there are leaves, everything. You just clean and clear it up. You can hang a wind chime. You can put something fresh there. I love also common sense. And one of the things that realtors talk about all the time is the power of curb appeal, that people make a entire decision
Mm.
based on that first impression. So that really aligns with this idea of, your front door is that first impression. And anything you do is just going to make you more magnetic to those
I love
opportunities you're
that.
calling
It's
in.
so funny. So we've got this huge big deck. And again, like we used to have a couch on there, but the dog kept sitting on it and chewing it. And it was rotten. So recently we've thrown it all out. And I have plants. Of course, I have plants all over the deck as well. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and there was a rug in the house that I was a little bit like, oh, I think it smells a bit musty. So we just put it out on the front deck. And now it's sort of dried out, but it
Yeah.
looks good. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave it there. So now we have this
Yeah.
beautiful kind of front deck space. So, okay, we're going to start using the front door.
Yeah. Exactly. If everyone leaves with one thing today, let me assure you that's it. And what I love about it too is most people, that's a manageable size. I'm not asking you to purge your attic or your garage. We're not tackling the kitchen. It
Yeah.
is a manageable space. And with anything, it's consistency, right? So you don't have to overdo it like every other day, but create a ritual that you can hold yourself to, and then be consistent enough that you can really start, letting that energy
I
compound in
love
your
that.
favor.
Awesome. So, what's next? Are you looking to build a successful human design or astrology business? Do you wish that you had your own chart tool on your website so you don't have to send people somewhere else to get it? BodyGraph.com provides all the resources you need to turn this vision into a reality. We use this incredible software in our business to provide charts and custom reading reports at the click of a button, generate leads, and bring in lots of passive revenue. BodyGraph.com has already helped coaches and entrepreneurs generate over $2.5 million in revenue. If you're ready to take your business seriously, start with a free trial and use the code HumanDesignPodcast to get 30% off for 6 months. Here's what you can do with BodyGraph.com. Embed stunning charts directly into your website, build personalized lead magnets to grow your email list, create and sell detailed reading reports, and even use their free website builder to get started fast. BodyGraph.com is the ultimate all-in-one platform for building your human design or astrology business. If you're ready to join the community of successful entrepreneurs, visit bodygraph.com and start building your dream business today. Follow the link in the show notes and use the code Human Design Podcast to get 30% off for 6 months.
The other thing I will say, well, I'll give you two other ones. And this comes down to what we often refer to as power spots in Feng Shui. So your front door is one, right? Because that's what calls energy in. Your kitchen, it's the seat of wealth and health, right? And I think kitchens are such a great space to work with too, because I feel like, well, bedrooms and kitchens are interesting because I find a lot of our best selves living there, right? So we have like all of the gadgets we're going to use in the kitchen, all the cookbooks for the healthier meals we're going to make. And, there's so much in there that really doesn't matter price tag, becomes clutter because we don't use it, right? So one of my favorite stories is I was at a client's house and he had this amazing Italian espresso maker on the counter. And I mean, it was easily $4,000 or $5,000. I mean, it was pretty impressive. But he is talking to me while he's holding a Starbucks cup. And so I ask, how often do you use this thing? And he's like, never. He's like, it's just there for looks. And I'm like, oh, well, you're going to love this, because when we have things taking up space, I want you to ask yourself, is this worth taking up the space from something else that I really want to see in my life? And some things, yes, like some things we love, we value, we appreciate, we use. But other things that are just there for show, and I want everyone to hear this, because one of the misconceptions, another misconception out there, is that if things are expensive, it's automatically good feng shui. And I don't love the bad good feng shui labels, but I'm just using language I hear. Cost does not keep things immune from becoming clutter. And so, he was looking to move up in his company. There were a lot of things out in the kitchen. And so we kind of did an audit. And I was like, you have a lot of opportunity if you either start using this espresso maker, which, has water in it, and water is a symbol of fortune, and getting that moving is a whole like wealth remedy if you want to make it one. Otherwise, I need you to move it. And he just looked at me like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? This is not
Yeah.
what I paid for.
Wow.
So having that audit of what's in your drawers, what's in, like the spice cabinet, what are you storing? One of the trends right now, and I love it and I don't love it, is where everyone's getting super organized. But when I start to see the organization turn into
Mm,
hoarding, right? We're organizing so we can hoard more things. I assure you that becomes problematic, because if you don't have room literally in your life to put something new, you don't really suggest that you have room to receive
wow.
anything new in your life. So keep that in mind. Yeah. And kitchens are, I find, an easy way to make room for new ideas, new opportunities, new prosperity to
I
land,
am sitting here
right?
going, shut up. This is so amazing because I actually have this thing, right? Where, um, like anyway, there's been people in my life in the past that they have a gadget for everything. And I'm like, dude, you don't need it. It's a waste of space. It's
Yes.
going to end up in landfill. Like,
Yes.
so I'm very simple. I don't
Yes.
have lots of extra gadgets because, yeah, I'm really conscious of where
Yes.
those things end up. And, like use a spoon, mate. Like, that's what your wrist is there for.
Yes.
Like, so I'm very conscious of that. And it's so interesting you say that because, again, one of the first things we did was completely like massively clean the kitchen, throw everything out, organize all the drawers.
Yeah.
And for us, it really is such like almost the heart of the house because we very Australian. We live in an open plan
Yeah.
house. The kitchen's right in the middle.
Hmm.
I stand there talking to my kids. The dinner table's just the other side of it. Like, um, and it's something I'm really particular about. And everyone in the house, like obviously the kids, but um, very particular just about keeping all the surfaces clean and clear. And if it's not getting used, it has a place. And I just remember, like, I've always felt that way about the kitchen. Like, there's something,
Yeah.
I don't know, sacred about it, which sounds silly, but like, it's so interesting that you say that because I can definitely say I've felt that.
Yeah, it's definitely tied to abundance, like stoking your burners to life, using your oven, all of those things. And another interesting point, well, I'll make two more interesting points. One is when people look to see where's the best place to make an investment in your house if you're doing a renovation. Kitchens, you always
Yeah.
get your money back and then some. So, like, that alone speaks to like it is really about investing your energy well. And then the other thing that I find so interesting is, I've had the enormous privilege to be on so many different podcasts around the world and people from different energetic backgrounds. And something that's in common between those energetic practices and, say, Feng Shui, sweeping is a big one. And then always using your stove. Like, there are so many cultures that would not dream of having someone come in their home without having
Mm.
something to offer them. And it's this idea of abundance being more than just money. It's about having family and friends and mouths to feed, right? Being able to nourish others. And when you look at why the stove is so significant in feng shui, it's this belief that there's this full circle of, if you are fortunate enough to feed others, then they can be strong, they can be healthy, they can go out and work, they can make money, and then that abundance comes back, right? So it's like that
Mm.
ongoing circle, perpetual circle. So it really is, there's
Oh
a
my
lot of
God, I love
symbolism to
that.
the
And because
kitchen.
we cook everything, like, I mean, it's very
Yeah.
Australian, like, where our culture is very, we cook most of our food. But I do feel like in our house, that's also the thing for me. Because I got big kids. Like, one of them's 18. He's going to be leaving next year. And I'm so conscious of, like, yeah, of course you can bring your friends over. Like, let's all sit around the table and eat. Like, I want to
Yes.
get to know these people. So I love that. And what's so interesting is um, just about a couple of weeks ago, we've got the stove that's got a wok burner in the middle, and it was blocked. It
Mhm.
wasn't working. So, and we got someone out. It's like, oh, it's just blocked. You just need to clear this thing. And I'm like, oh. And so, because for me, everything's a metaphor. And now you said that, I'm like, oh my God. And one of the other burners is now playing up because it's blocked. I'm like, okay, what is this telling me? What's blocked? How am I blocked?
No, but that's, and you bring up another thing that I want to touch on. And that is if you can really embrace this idea of your home being this living, breathing energy, right? Then when things need to be taken care of, it is no different than having a family member, right? Like a spouse, a partner, a kid who needs that sort of care. It's the same type of investment. And, it doesn't make the sticker shock any less when something big happens. But if you know that taking care of your home is only going to help you tenfold, it does that reframe I find makes it a little bit easier to not feel as frustrated when those things happen because homes are going to have, things that they need taken care of. There is maintenance involved. But it is an act of self
Yeah, it's really
hospitality.
interesting, So it was something my mum said when I was little. She had this whole theory about cars. Like if you speak nicely to it, it'll take care of you. And of course it seems silly, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to run with it. Still to this day, I speak nicely to cars and homes. And we've had some of the weirdest shit
Yes.
happen in our house where like the hot water wasn't working, and we're kind of like, crap, like there's something wrong with it. And okay, we'll get someone onto it tomorrow. And because my eldest son's big into this as well, so he's just like, oh, it'll be okay, mum. Um, and I'll be like calling in Angel Michael to put a bubble around the house and be like, dude, could you take care of this? And sure enough, next morning we got hot water. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I love it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. I have a course, and once a month we meet for questions. And just this last Friday, we had a whole conversation about the power of naming your
ooh,
home. It was like an entire conversation about just that. Like, oftentimes we name our cars, but we don't think to name our homes, and really how everyone has such a different process because some people just name their home, they just have a sense, and other people ask their home. Some people use pendulums, some people it was fantastic, but the idea is that when we name something, we have a tendency to take better
I
care of it.
love that. That is so cool. So, where's the
Yeah.
third place that we should look at? Oh, I've got
So
so many questions about the
the
bedroom, but please go
bedroom.
ahead
Yes.
first.
I mean, yes. So the bedroom, this is I'd like to say that I go in and it's the, most cared for and doted on space in a home. But oftentimes people get so frustrated when I say this. I can tell what you think you're worth by the state of your room. Meaning, if you allow everything from the day, from everyone else's lives to infringe on that space, I know you're not at the top of your own to do list. And you cannot go out and do the things and be the person and meet the expectations that you have for yourself if you're not prioritizing yourself. And so when it comes to bedrooms, the filter is okay, what is related to rest, romance, and relaxation? And if it doesn't hit one of those categories, it needs to
Oh my
find
God.
another living
Do you know one of my
space,
really
right?
bad habits? Because I have the most comfy chair in my room, is that I'll work in my room. And every time I do it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I know I should be back. And I've got a beautiful office, don't get me wrong, but it's that cozy,
Yeah.
nurturing. Yeah, I got to
Yeah.
move out of my office, don't I? Out to my office.
I Well, I think that we love that sort of sometimes because I have a great couch in ours and I like to go back there and sort of take notes and those kind of things. And here's what I'll say I think it's okay once in a while. But where I think people get tripped up is you have to remember that energy compounds. Okay. So what you're doing has a tendency to leave fingerprints, and if you're constantly working in a space, that's the energy that's compounding there. So even if you're like, well, I take my laptop out of there, I
Yeah.
move everything out of there at the end of the day, if you notice that you're restless, that you're not sleeping as well, or you're waking up and not feeling as rested, that energy is still in your space and it could be the thing
Mm.
causing interference. And sometimes it's hard for people to make that connection. But what is so interesting, I have to tell you, I've had so many people challenge me over the years on this. If you, and I'm not good at this either, so I'm calling myself out as much as anyone else, but if you remove the devices and you happen to have one of those things that tracks your sleep, you will notice that your sleep quality improves. I was at a big like design district, workshop here in Dallas, and some of the ladies were like, tisk, tisk, I don't think that really is true. And they responded to me like, oh my goodness. And then many years later, I was on another podcast with these 20-year-old guys who were like, there's no way. Like they thought they were going to debunk
Yeah.
everything I said. And then they did a whole follow up podcast because they were like, I cannot believe how accurate that is. So, again, these little simple things that we want to like resist can make all the difference in think about that when you feel better, when you are more rested, when you are fully yourself, recharged, replenished,
Yeah.
you can conquer anything. And that alone is such
Yeah.
a, pivot in how
Yeah, I
you
love that. And
experience life.
honestly, like I am a no devices anywhere near the bedroom human. So like and that's been for a
Good.
really long time
Yeah.
for me because um whether it's me noticing that it activates me or the EMFs, like I'm very like they're far away. And it's interesting because I've actually over the last few months, like I've really shifted um, my morning routine and my nighttime routine. So I go into my bedroom at least an hour before I'm going to go to bed, and I just light candles and I sit there and drink tea. And I sometimes I'll journal, but sometimes I don't even do that because it's all about just sitting still and being present. And I do that
Yeah.
morning and night. So even when I used to wake up and go, okay, right now I meditate, now I red light, now I this, and now I don't do that. I'm just like flowing. And of course, there'll always be a
Yeah.
version of those things, but it's from this more still, receptive, responsive place. And that alone has massively improved my sleep. Which is why I think there's also part of me that's like, see, that's counteracting all the working in there. Um, and it's not that I work in there all the time, it's just that it feels so
Yeah.
nurturing. I love my room and my space.
Yeah.
I have a question about it though, because I have this I'm really into art. I love art. I love art with
Yeah.
meaning, art that speaks to me. And I've actually got this Picasso print called The Sleeping Lady that's always been over my bed since I was like 22. Um, and,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. It's just what I need. But the other two paintings that are in my room, one is this field of sunflowers, and it's just stunning. And I do often sit there staring at it. And I wonder, like, although, like, I would actually describe my energy as a sunflower, like joyous, and it's my favorite flower. I sometimes wonder, like, is this the right place for you? Like, should you be somewhere else? But not even more than that, the picture that when I sit in my comfy chair, which is at the end of my bed, the picture that I look up at, she's a warrior. And it's this warrior energy and like this like
Mm.
really powerful energy. And I'm often looking at her and I'm like, I love you, but again, I'm not sure you should be in here. So I've been thinking about swapping these two out for the ones that I have in the office, which are more. One of them is literally this woman relaxing or kind of in a swan reading a book, and then the other one is it's all about inspiration. So I don't know if I should swap those out. Like, are they playing a big role, or is it how I respond to them, how I feel around them, that matters more?
Okay, I love this question. I love this question because I just did a podcast not too long ago on art, and people are like, I
I
just want you to
love
talk more
art.
about
It
art. So
changes my
I'm going to be
world.
able to listen. It's a big deal. So I'm going to tell you some things you love.
Okay,
I'm going to tell you some things you're probably not going to
hit me
love,
up.
but this is a really great learning opportunity. Okay. So the first and most important, so this trumps everything else, okay, is when it comes to art in the bedroom, the most important thing for me when I'm asking people about what they see is that exactly what you said, you love it. Because you have to think your bedroom is, I don't know if this still holds true, but I'm going to guess it's pretty close. We spend a third of our lives in the bedroom, right? And so it's bookending your days. And so how you start your day, how you finish your day, you want to love what you see. When people ask me like what bedrooms have to have, it's a really quick list. And the last thing on that list every single time is have something that you love waking up to and falling asleep to, because that is, again, it's having that influence and you are under that influence. So your sunflowers don't bother me at all. So the two ladies, I'm guessing
Yep.
it's just one lady in each. Okay. So again, everyone, remember a minute ago I said where someone is, their
Oh my God.
situation,
Like I've
their
all
desired
it's
outcomes,
dropping in
all of
before
that
you're even
factors
getting
in.
there. Oh my God. I'm like, I hadn't even thought of it that way. Okay, keep going.
So when single women come to me and they're like, I cannot partner, like what is going on? If that single energy is anchored in the bedroom, which it doesn't matter where the bedroom is on the map, that is another way of reading your home's energy. The bedroom itself oftentimes is the place that we tie to, relationship. And so when there's a lot of single energy in the room, it suggests, and really you can make this mean whatever you want, but it suggests like, okay, I am at the top of my to-do list, prioritizing me, great, and there's not really room for someone else.
Mm,
So this is one of those situations where if I were in your home, I want to walk people through what that, with a responsible practitioner, what they would probably ask is, okay, well, tell me about this art. And you just described it to me. I would look at what your objectives were. And if you're like, I cannot
no, but it's
partner, and I'm
definitely on
not
the
saying
list. Like
that's
it's on the
you.
list.
I know. I
Yeah.
I listen to your podcast. That's why I'm going here. So if someone said to me, like getting partnered or finding, the one, I'd be like, okay, let's talk about some other places that this art could be, that it would still be as appreciated, but it's not reinforcing I'm on my own.
Wow.
Because remember, it's having that, it's having that influence on you when you wake up and when you
This
go to
is
sleep.
so powerful because now I'm like, oh my God, so much of my art is women. Like so much of it is women. And there is this picture by this artist in Colorado that I have wanted since I was
Mhm.
here last time. So maybe, in fact, it doesn't matter. It's for a long time, right? And I have not bought it for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And it's a stag. And to me, it's
Yeah.
so masculine. And it's like I've wanted it forever and I
Yes.
want it for my bedroom. And you saying this, I'm like, oh my God, like it's this is the sign, like this is the thing for me to respond to because yeah, it's like subconsciously I'm aware of that, even in the office. And I'm like, okay, the warrior, she's going to the office. Because
Yeah.
yeah, but even the other two paintings I was going to swap in, they're both women. So I'm like, okay, so I can't
Oh,
bring
they
them
are.
in.
Yeah.
Then I've got go ahead.
Well, so what I would Oh, I was just gonna say, so what I was gonna say is like what will happen is a lot of people hear this, and for some people they'll feel resistant to it. Listen, you are the person deciding what's most important in your life. And if you're not looking to partner up, if you're that's not something that concerns you, you feel really, keep in mind partnership
Mm-hmm.
can relate to everything too. It's not just romantic. So it can be
But I've got,
social, it
oh
can
my
be,
God, you're
you
blowing my
know,
mind. So I've nailed that in the last few years, right? But the thing that's crazy is that up until I'm going to say 4 years ago, I was like, why don't I have any female friends? Because, of course, trauma, it's the way I was raised, tomboy, blah, blah, blah. And
yeah,
now I have all these crazy, amazing women in my life, even to the point that I'm like, God, I
yeah.
wish I was attracted to women because it'd be so much easier to be in a relationship with a woman. But now I'm like, oh my God, it's just because this is what my whole life says about me.
Yeah, and I would say now again, I'm just inserting on the fly here, so, take it, leave it, but, you coming out of this relationship and really holding your own and all of that, that singular female energy was really important. And this is a bigger lesson when it comes to feng shui because again, another misconception
Mm,
is it's a one and done. Feng Shui is a wisdom. It's a language. And it is, you're always in conversation with your house. And I'm going to guess where you were 5 years ago is not where you are today. So your house and the way you sort of anoint it is going to look differently. It should look differently. It should match where you are or where you're going. It can have notes of where you've been, but if it's all holding you to the
mm.
past, right? And let me be clear, it's not about buying new things. I don't need you to go out and like, max out the card, but it's giving yourself permission to move things around, try different arrangements, move the art to different rooms, all of those things because we start to notice things differently when they've
Mm.
been shifted. And it really revives some of that joy that we experienced with something when we bought it. It's not that so many of our things have lost that loving feeling. It's just that they've grown tired in the
Mm.
spots that they are. And so we're looking to sort of be intrigued and enticed by our house, and moving things around is a really easy way to do that, to give all of your
Mm.
things a zhuzh.
So I love that. And one of the things that I also think about, so now I'm reflecting on the entire house. And honestly, like, it's probably a lot more feminine than it's ever been, apart from the fact that it's a lot more organized and
Yeah.
tidy and blah, blah, blah. There is definitely, so there is 3 women in there. Like, I live there, then I've got, one of my besties lives with me. Like, she moved in when he moved out, and like, that's been amazing. And then we have another person who's with us all the time in the house, right? So I suppose the question that I'm led to is, right, so what are the things that I can bring into the house, even though I've got 2 boys and a male dog and
Yeah.
a female dog? So what are the things that I can bring into the house that's going to balance out this feminine energy? Like, because I do want to call in the masculine energy. I do have sorry, I'm going to manifesting generator this. I'm going to give you 2 questions. You're a projector. You can deal with big questions. Because the second part for me is, I love my bedroom so much, and I sleep like a starfish. And of course, I haven't done that for 25 years.
Yeah.
There is part of me that's like, hang on a second, I'm
Yeah.
not sure I ever want to share a bedroom with a man again. So that's
Yeah.
twofold. How can I bring in the masculine energy into the house to call in the man? And there is this
Yeah.
kind of, and I won't know until I'm in the situation whether this is, just how I feel now, or this is something that is true for me for, moving forward. So how do
Yeah.
I address those 2 issues?
Well, I would say, I mean, I think the answer is the same for both of them. And that is, the simplest way. I mean, we could go through sort of this like yin yang conversation, like yang being more masculine, active, hard surfaces, bright light, larger pieces, like all of those things. And that tends to lean into more masculine. It doesn't necessarily mean male, gender specific, but just that, that counterbalance to that very feminine energy. But I would say the litmus test I give my clients and students is, how do you think that energy would feel most welcome in your home? And what would you do to accommodate that now before they showed
Mm,
up? Because that's an easier way, because then it really gets to the heart of who you're calling in, instead of some, universal, more generic
mm.
list.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great question. And if I put myself in that situation and imagine like a man being in that house or in our home,
Mhm.
I don't like I don't think it's necessarily overly feminine, Like, I think he'd feel super comfortable. I
Yeah.
mean, there is a part of me that's kind of like, you
Yeah.
can come into my bedroom, but it's my bedroom. It's my space. Like,
Yeah.
and again, that might just be,
Yeah.
coming off the back of a long-term relationship. But do you know what's really interesting about what you said is, one of the first things I did when we separated is I bought pink sheets. And there was a part of me
I love
that even
that.
knew at the time, I'm like, these are fucking feminine. Like, you can all fuck off, like, there was this kind of energy about it. And what's really interesting is, I've noticed myself move away from the pink sheets. Like, now there's green sheets, like, so I definitely notice those things. But yeah, I'd have to reflect on that a bit, because if I imagine a man in the house, and obviously I have 2 boys, and the boys love the place, they feel very at home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like, we have massive couches, but not too much
Yeah.
fluff. But that's kind of the humans that live there. So I don't.
Right.
Good question.
Well, I'm gonna share two more things. So it's interesting that you were drawn to the pink sheets, because one of the very first things I learned from one of my very first mentors is, anytime you're going through heartbreak or heartache, pink sheets
Shut
or green
up!
sheets are
Like, I
really great.
literally went out and bought
Yeah,
pink sheets and green sheets. That's so
I
cool.
know. So I'm guessing that someone who needs to hear that is listening, and so I just want to really put a spotlight on that, because that was so aligned, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but I love that that's what you were drawn to. in terms of like the masculine energy, one of the questions that I'll ask people is like, okay, so what does this person like to do? What do you want to do with this person? Like, imagine being Mary Poppins, right? Like that list that the kids made of everything they wanted. Like, what is that? And then you can start to fine tune your space. And it can be something as simple as clearing out a little space in the bedside table, clearing out a little space in the bedroom, having a little spot in the closet. One of the things that people run into, and I talk about this with like, the goddess sanctuaries and the bachelor pads, is that when someone tries to move into that space, right? It's beyond the dating. It's like, okay, they're moving in. And I'm not saying that that's in your forecast, but like if that's something that sort of are looking for, when we don't sort of create a space that feels welcoming, then one of the first impressions they get is like, this is hers or this is his, and they never feel fully comfortable. Doesn't mean that they'll ever communicate that. But then if all of a sudden the relationship doesn't work, which now listen, that's the stuff I hear, I'm like, okay, well, how did you sort of make this space work for both of you? And it's like, well, I
Mm.
didn't. Ding, 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 ding. Right. So those are really subtle nuances. And while you're in sort of the space of calling it in, there are little things that you can start to tweak. And again, you don't have to go out and buy anything. It's just having that mindful
Mm.
awareness of, okay, if someone were here, like I remember I had a client years ago who wanted to call in an executive. She wanted someone who was like a C-suiter. And I was like, okay, well, then we need to go get suit
Mm.
hangers. Like we need to get a tie rack for your closet, like two small things, but like let's suggest that. So it's little things like that.
Oh my God, I love it. So I want to call in. I'm just going to go for your hot tips.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking for an entrepreneurial man who has been very
Mhm.
purpose driven. That maybe he's been very like work
Mhm.
and purpose driven, and he's now like, right, I've built this whole life and I want to share it with someone. Um, and I think about like,
Mhm.
what do I want to do in this space? Connection, connection, connection. Whether it's cooking food and eating food, it's
Mhm.
about talking. Obviously connection in the bedroom. Um, and the other thing for me is very much about fun and play. We love to play cards.
Yeah.
Taylor has introduced my family to cornhole, so we love cornhole. So it's a very playful space. So, like, I very much want a man who's, really got his shit together, that he's in his divine masculine, a man
Yeah.
that wants to really create a safe container. He's a powerful listener and a
Yeah.
powerful leader. And he's purpose driven. He wants to
Mhm.
have an impact in the world. Or really, I want him to be at the space where he's had the big purpose in the world. He's kind of done the young man, as Carl Jung would call it. He's done the athlete, he's done the warrior, and he's moving into that statesman energy. And he
Yeah.
really wants to share his life with someone. So, are there any hot tips
Yeah.
that I could introduce into the house?
Yeah. So just everything that you said and like this idea of connection, connection, connection,
Mm.
earth energy. So, one of the things that we work with in Feng Shui, and it is a little bit bigger of a conversation. So, I'm just forewarning anyone,
Yeah.
if you hit Google
Yeah.
School, prepare yourselves. But the element earth is really about feeling grounded. It is about nourishment. It is about cohesion. It's about feeling stable, right? It's like just, I mean, you think about it, like
Mm.
very, very grounded. And I'm guessing because of the way you described your house, that you have a more metal home. This does not mean metal-y, but just, if you tend to not have like you're not super maximalist, right? I don't want to say you're minimalist, but you're really good about the clutter and everything having its own space and place and all that kind of stuff. It probably leans metal. And the great thing about the earth energy, which is, lower furniture. Your couches sound like
Yeah.
they're already very earthy, bigger square prints, like all of that energy
Amazing. And our
feeds that
coffee
metal
table is
energy.
this big
Um,
square and very low to the ground. Like my eldest, who's now
yes.
18, he learnt to walk
Yes.
around this table because it was so low. So I love that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it's like really introducing that. So again, it's not about like, oh my gosh, we have to change everything so it's reflective of Earth. That's not the goal. But when you're looking at art, right? Maybe look for prints that are landscape, or look for things that have more earthy tones, which is, what I say is your browns and your yellows, but any sort of those muddier colors, right? So it could be your olive green, or, sort of that like late fall golden yellow, or any of those colors. It can be
We
square
got
art,
loads of
right?
square art. That's
Anything
crazy.
like,
I've got two
yes.
paintings of
Yep.
trees in our living room. Like one of them is from a trip around
Yeah.
Australia, these incredible boab trees, and then another one's this palm tree. That's
Oh,
amazing. Like there's lots
beautiful.
of earthy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So really looking for just like that's the stuff. And then I would go to, okay, so here's someone who's super accomplished. Like if you walked into his house, what do you think the first three things you would notice
Well, I think
are?
the first
That's
thing I would notice,
yeah.
because I've kind of felt into this, is just the orderly state of it, that there's nothing excessive,
Okay.
that it's like
Yeah.
um, everything feels deliberate. Do you know what I mean? Or intentional.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of the first thing. I also feel like his place, I would notice that there is like what's the word? A grounded luxury about it. Like he's very clear that
Okay.
the sort of life he's living, like he wants to live this life where he lives a life of luxury. However, he doesn't overdo it. And again,
Yes.
I'm like, shit, am I just projecting myself? Like he cares about the planet. He cares about the environment. He cares about what he invests his money into. He doesn't put his money towards people or businesses that aren't ethical or treat people well or treat the planet well. So I feel like his space is very
Yeah.
deliberate and intentional. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I always see it as this big open plan kind of space with lots of views. Like again, he has this big perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I like that. So, two things. One, and really simple, I would say, okay, well, what about getting a really beautiful luxe key tray that he would drop
Mm.
his keys
Mm-hmm.
in when he came home? Something like that. Really simple, but it is a very specific anchor
Mm.
to this intention. That's another thing I want everyone to take away is that, yes, your house can be just a bunch of things. You can also go and infuse them with your intention, and now they become an anchor, an accountability partner. They are in service to
Mm.
that intention, right? And now they're having that conversation with you, whether you are consciously thinking it or not. So that's a really powerful thing you can do. So something like that. When it comes to having a really big perspective, I'm going to give you two ideas because you said that's something he, has is making sure that you can see clearly out the windows, that you don't have things that are sort of blocking them. And that's, probably it sounds like
Mm-mm.
your space wouldn't have that, but other people might not realize that, when you can't see out the window, that sort of blocks your ability to have a
Mm.
different perspective. Um, Mirrors, like really
Oh,
programming your
so
mirrors.
I have some
Like,
really big
yes,
mirrors. I got a big mirror in the bedroom and a big mirror
yes,
in the living room, and I've always
yes,
wondered about those.
yes. Yeah. So, something that I like to challenge my students to do is to come up with an intention. In Feng Shui, we love the color red because it is, a very young, very powerful color. And I have them write an intention down with red. If they want, they can put it in a red envelope. Don't need to, but that's just an additional step, additional like oomph, and then put it behind the mirror. And so then the
Oh,
mirror
that's
is
brilliant.
magnetizing that, mirrors double. Yeah. They double that intention and they're now programmed. So that is a really great way to have something in your home
Mm.
working on your
Oh
behalf.
my God, I love that. Like, that is fantastic. And I've sometimes heard that you shouldn't have mirrors in the bedroom.
Well, there's so much, again, a lot of misconception around that. Mirrors are energizing. So for some people, a mirror in the bedroom is amplifying energy, and people are sensitive enough that they don't sleep well. So again, as a responsible practitioner, I don't go in and judge anything in anyone's home. I'm very curious. So if I see a mirror in a bedroom, I'm like, tell me about how you sleep. How do you feel most days? And if there are no issues, there are no issues. If someone tells me I don't sleep so well, I wake up in the middle of the night, I have a hard time going to sleep, my mind starts running, I've had this, illness that I can't seem to kick. Remember, mirrors double an energy. They're reflecting that energy around your space. And so if that's an issue, then I will get curious about, okay, could we move this somewhere else? It doesn't have to maybe come out of the bedroom, but is there somewhere else so maybe you're not being
Mm.
reflected in it? And we start to test things out. And what I will say to people is like, listen, I promise I'm never going to tell you to knock out a wall, but I might ask you to move things around. And we can all do that because
Yeah.
guess what? We can move it back.
You know what I love that you just said? I'm like, my mirror in my bedroom literally, like, because I was always like, I'm not sure. So it doesn't necessarily reflect me or the bed, but it looks straight at the sleeping lady, And I'm like, oh, right. Okay. So that might
Okay.
be a thing. That might be a thing to look at.
Well, she might be helping you
Yeah.
sleep really well right now, right? Because that's what's being amplified. But again, like that's what's so fun about feng shui is you can literally look at your
Mm.
anything in your house as metaphor. The way that I recommend people do this is do not like edit, do not filter, just assign everything you see the first word that comes to mind. And that's probably the energetic contribution. And then from there, you get to decide is that working in my favor or do I feel like that might be creating a little
Mm.
turbulence?
Oh my goodness, I love that so, so, so much. Oh my God, I just looked at the time. I could talk to you for hours. Hours.
Same.
Do you have a few more minutes? Can we talk for a little bit longer? Amazing.
Yes,
Because
I do,
I'm
for
also
sure.
curious, I'm just thinking about my boys. Like, are there things for them that I could think about? They're teenage boys. I mean, my 18-year-old, he's just about to finish school. He's kind of gone through the hard teenage years. But my youngest, he's 13, going
Yeah.
on 14. Obviously both of them are dealing with the divorce. Like, is there anything that
Mhm.
I can do or help them with to, kind of make being a teenage boy easier?
Well, so it's interesting. It's not probably a surprise that in some homes, moms are like, hey, can you go in and feng shui their room? And so, just for all the parents listening, I really encourage you if your kiddo is over
Mm.
10, get permission. Feng shui is not, again, right? It's not a to do list, it's not transactional, it's a very intentional process, and you can't set intentions for someone else. That's why when you go into their rooms and start doing things, you're going to
Yeah.
experience clapback.
Yeah.
If you have a normal, healthy teenager. So, what I often do with teenage rooms, sort of some of the rules I have is, you have to imagine you're in that stage of life where you have the most young energy, right? And so you're like just teeming with like, I want to experience, I want to do, I want to taste, I want to be. And you have a school schedule and you have a curfew and you have rules that you have to follow in your house. And so there's this real conflict. And so with their rooms, I try not to say, they have to clean it up or they have to hold any sort of standard because what they're really doing is they're
Mm.
counterbalancing themselves. If they throw things on the floor, if they like things super dark, if they leave things in there and you're like, oh my gosh, it's making me crazy, it's because they are trying to manage their own energy. They are trying to yin the space down to manage, sort of that
Mm.
energy they have. So instead, what I recommend a lot of times with teenagers is set two or three house rules, right? And just like make those the house rules. So maybe it's like the bed has to be made or the blinds need to be open every day just so that sun can come in and sort of
Yeah.
do its own little scrub, energetic scrub, right? But really have some of those rules that will, again, compound. They seem simple, they don't produce overnight results, but over time, and you can take it from my expertise, like they do help shift how
Mm.
people
I love
feel.
that.
The other thing that I look at is bed placement. If they're sort of nestled in a corner and you're ready for them to like take more responsibility, go out in the world, pulling that bed out from the corner like opens up opportunities for them. So that's a
Mm.
powerful shift. Also being mindful of images of them not only in their bedroom, which they have a say over, but any sort of images of them, and then what photos you hang around the house. Like if they tend to be younger when they're babies and they're not wanting to leave home, you
Mm,
might want to update those. If they're struggling with self-esteem, you might want to ask, like, do you hate any of these pictures up? Because imagine having to see a picture of yourself that you hate so
yeah.
much every single day. That's going to have an effect on how you feel about yourself. So those little tweaks actually again make a difference in how they feel about their lives and who they are when
Mm.
they walk out
I
the front
love
door.
that because I've watched my eldest and I've tried to be really like, I'm just going to let you be, you know, like and he, because
Yeah.
he, in human design, he's a caves person. So I've been very conscious of his cave, you know, like
Mm,
that he has to have
yeah.
control, which kind of trained me for my second one as well, because he's a line two, he's got a defined will center, he's very determined. And oh my God, his bedroom gives me the shits, you know? It's like he has a laundry basket, but he chooses to just shove all his dirty clothes behind his chair.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe every second week he'll pull them out. And what is so fascinating is like just hearing you say this, because there's part of me that just wants to like fucking clean up your room. But there's this other bigger part of me of like, just leave him
Yeah.
alone, leave him alone. Because I look at my eldest, and
Yeah.
my eldest, like, he makes his bed every day. The whole room is always tidy. He cleans his own sheets. He,
Yeah.
you know, does all of this stuff. And I do wonder if it's just because I was, as much as I wanted to tell him off for the mess, or I might just say, this room's disgusting, you need to clean it up. I never forced these things on them.
Yeah.
And when you said it's the balance of,
Yeah.
you know, what you said was more masculine, but I heard control with my youngest, I feel like that's exactly
Yeah.
what it's about. It's like, and he will say, it's my room, mum, I
Yeah.
can do what I want. I'm like, okay, sure. But that sausage roll that you like had 3 days ago, it really needs to come out and go in the rubbish bin. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and that's why I love house rules, because there are some things, right? We're still like helping shape who they're going to be out in the world, and we want them to be, obviously mindful and easy to live with if they go off to college or university. Like, those are things to keep in mind. But I think I see the same thing with little kids' rooms where you have the moms who want the bedroom to look very, Pinteresty or, Insta worthy. And, those, kids gather their things, they create their nest because they're
Mm,
trying to soothe their nervous systems, right? And so when you make everything grayish and they can only have one toy in there, sure, it might look great in pictures. It might look great when you have people over, but it
mm,
doesn't feel good to the kid. And so, really, when people are like, I want my kid to be more self expressive, this is one of those like painful parts of it. You've got to give them permission to be expressive, even if it
mm.
doesn't match your aesthetic or preference. Again, house rules, what are the big ones? Like no food in the
But
bedroom more than
yeah.
24 hours, like make the bed open, like, right, like things like that. But then it's like it's really clear. It's not complicated. They're not trying to meet
Mm.
your preference stylistically. You're just like hygienically,
Yeah.
this is how it goes, right?
I love
And
that. And
they
I
can
think
work with that.
because of my childhood, like my childhood bedroom, I had total sovereignty over. I had like two walls
Yeah.
completely covered with photos and pictures and all sorts. So they have a very
Yeah.
similar, because I've never said you can't. I'm like, yeah, sure, go for it. Put up whatever you want.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like they do have a lot of freedom, and it gives them that option to just express themselves.